Hey everybody, my name is Ashley Garth and I am here with Shekinah Stacey, the program manager of the Village, and Erica Burnett, the VP of the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee. And they're going to join us for our February 13th 1 year anniversary networking event. And we're just going to have a chat. So first, how is your day going so far, ladies?
My day is going pretty good. It's Black History Month, and so, you know, even though the weather isn't great, every day is a good day.
Yeah.
It's been a busy one. I'm ready for a weekend, but it's great to do meaningful work with passionate folks. And so that keeps me going even when I have a wall of meetings.
Yeah, a wall of meetings. I feel you. So let's go ahead and dive in. I want to first start about just telling everybody who you are and the mission. So can you share the vision of and the mission and who you guys are serving?
So the Village basically is an incubation program. So we primarily serve nonprofits, Black led and Black serving. And so the mission of the Village really is just to support, to incubate, to provide upskilling, capacity, opportunities for Black-led nonprofits. We know that systemically, Black-led nonprofits are they face a lot of hardships, and they don't have access to a lot of resources that the everyday nonprofit does. And so the Village exists basically to just service that gap, and just to, especially for nonprofits in Nashville and Middle Tennessee.
And let me ask you a question. If I was thinking about starting a nonprofit, could I still be a member or do I have to officially have a nonprofit right now?
So if you have a 501c3, we don't, if you want to be a member of the Village is for 501c3s, but I think it's a great community. We host weekly Village meetings. And so you don't have to be a member of the Village and have all the answers and everything figured out. But if you're just a little bit curious, we don't gatekeep. And so we have these weekly Village meetings that I think is just a great start, to get into like a community. If you're interested, if you're curious, if you want to be a part of the nonprofit sector, if you're interested in starting your own nonprofit, but you don't have all the answers and you don't know where to start, I think that's a great way to just start networking and just start building a community of people, like-minded mentors that you can just ask, hey, I'm interested in this thing, but I don't know where to start.
Perfect. And I ask you that because, guys, if you come on the 13th and you're thinking about transitioning into this industry, it's a great relationship to go ahead and make an event. So thank you for sharing that.
Ashley, I'm gonna throw something in there because if anyone comes and meets me or we've had conversations, especially about the nonprofit sector, I don't want there to be confusion about sort of our approach and even stance. So our market is incredibly saturated with impactful organizations. And part of the work of the Village, and I think the larger work of the Community Foundation, is to make sure that we have the right information and that we are equipped to make decisions that ultimately lead to deeper community impact. Historically, we have oftentimes associated that deeper community impact with starting something new. And what has proven true for us over the last year and a half of the Village being housed here at Community Foundation is that we see not only from a landscape perspective where there are limited resources, but also where there is a capacity limitations, right? And so I throw this out as a caveat. While we welcome an opportunity to be able to engage and explore curiosities around the impact sector, typically people say nonprofit sector, but the impact sector, we would be even more thrilled to explore possibilities for collaboration, for partnerships, for deepening the capacity of organizations that have deep roots around a particular impact area. The work of the Village is to hold space for the individuals and the nonprofits that are doing this work, but it's also for us to have an ear to the ground and our finger on the pulse of a landscape that does have limitations as far as financial capacity and people capacity. And so the Village as a Space and Community Foundation as an anchor organization is deeply committed to not only transforming generosity into meaningful impact in the community by working with our philanthropic partners, our foundations, our donors, but it's also making sure that we have the right skills and understanding about the landscape so that we can make strategic moves as a collective.
And I love that you said that. I'm going to brag on you guys a little bit. Guys, just this week, we had a meeting where Erica just mentioned they want to know what we need and they're listening. We had a meeting where they were just straight up and was like, what do you guys need? Like, we're here. We want to actually make an impact and do something. So the floor is yours. So I like to connect with people that are actually I'm witnessing what they're doing, and I know they're not out here playing. So guys, this is real. So if visit the website again, if you want to come and learn more, they can dive in deeper. But this is a golden gem that a lot of people are overlooking in the city. So I just wanted to add that in. Okay, let's talk about the vision for the future. So looking ahead, what are some of the aspirations of the organization, and how do you see your role evolving to further drive inclusivity and the equitable dang.
Right. Right.
You're gonna have to edit that, okay?
Yep.
Talk about the vision for the future. So looking ahead, what are some of the aspirations for your organization within the village's ecosystem? Let's start with that piece.
Shekinah, is it okay if I share from the larger picture, and then maybe you can talk about what are some of our strategies on the ground for this year? What feels important for a community foundation? So just a little bit of backstory for those who are following along. We've talked about the village, and now we've also named Community Foundation. The village as a program is housed at the Community Foundation. Started under Mayor Cooper's administration, had a home at the Center for Nonprofit Management, now known as the Center for Nonprofit Excellence, for a little while, and then eventually came over to Community Foundation, where we've been incubating the program for a little over a year and a half now, as a pillar in the community that has been really seen historically as the community's bank, right? This is our proof of concept around what happens when we move beyond writing the check. How do we connect thoughtful philanthropy, which means our foundations that serve and support across Middle Tennessee. It means our corporate social responsibility hubs that support across Middle Tennessee. It also includes individual donors who have donor advised funds or have dollars, right, that they want to see impact community. I like to say sort of the brain of the operations, right? You give us the right input, and as organizations, we then figure out how to best leverage and mobilize those dollars in community by way of specific nonprofits or scholarships, depending on what category we're talking in. When I think of what is our role in relation to looking forward and thinking about the village as an ecosystem that we are committed to supporting, I've been using the analogy of a greenhouse. The village is a seedling that needs somewhere safe to grow really deep roots and strong branches so that it can produce the best fruit possible. What the Community Foundation as an institution provides is the safety net for those organizations and the individual leaders that may not be able to breathe the right air outside right now. And so what that looks like for us is you may not be positioned to pursue that $1 million grant, but how can we help support build your infrastructure around your finances, right? How can we build the sustainability in your programs that positions you in the next year or two, right, for that $1 million grant? So what's the $20,000 grant that we can support you in going after by providing some of the underwriting support for a grant writer, not to plug and play, but to teach you how to fish along the way, right? We're not going to let you starve while we're teaching you how to fish. If I think about the unique value proposition of the Community Foundation in this moment in time in relation to our village org, so very directly, we're talking about Black-led or servicing nonprofits, right? I can say those, we can say those real words. The role of the Community Foundation in the ecosystem of those nonprofits is to advocate where we can legislatively to make sure there are fair and just processes so that dollars end up in the bank account of these organizations as allocated by our city council members, these taxpayer dollars, right? How do we remove some of the red tape so that folks can do the work of community? It is making sure that they are positioned to be at tables that help them build sustainability for their organizations long term, both from a relationship perspective, but also from an operations perspective. And then the softer piece, Ashley, that's a little bit more difficult, but requires, I think, more attention than anything else, is the shift in behaviors and attitudes. It's how do we understand that a scarcity mindset is not what we need? This is not the landscape to compete in, it's the landscape to collaborate through. It is not the space for you to have more requirements of a nonprofit, it's a space for you to lean into trust-based philanthropy. So our role in this ecosystem for the village is to make sure that once they are no longer in the greenhouse, that the environment is healthy for them to thrive. And that requires us to leverage very directly some of our capital, our political capital, our reputational capital, to make sure that we are positioning these orgs for success long-term and really changing the culture of what was previously known as charity, right, into something that is a truly transformative transaction that's beneficial for a community. I'm sure Shekinah can talk more about the nuts and bolts of how we are focusing in on that vision for and with our nonprofit leaders and those organizations on a sort of week by week basis.
Yeah, so for one, so eloquently put, Erica, as always. And I wanted to especially highlight the collaboration and education piece. I think that a lot of our nonprofits lead with the goal of we need the money to operate. What the village does is we really want to fill in the spaces that even people don't consider. Is once you get the funds, what do you do? A lot of people, once they get the money, they really don't know where to turn, what workshops to go to, what skills they need to be developed, and even succession plan. And I think that that's something that we've also really been honing in on is how do you want this work to be sustained once you no longer have the capacity to do the work? Eventually you want to retire. And so those are just through the weekly meetings, through underwriting consulting projects, through even allowing people access to memberships like CNE memberships. Those are really the places that we insert ourselves, especially when it comes to capacity building, because we know that this work is gonna take a lot to get this done. It's gonna take a team to get this done. And so we don't want to encourage people to work in silo. I think one of the reasons why our weekly meetings are so important is because it gives people a chance to network in an environment and in a community that is normally so used to working in silo. And that literally just being in the right room and being in community with the right people literally answers so many questions that people are wrecking their brains trying to figure out.
And it actually leads to the next question. And that's why I love these networking events that we do each month, is because once we get the funding and the resources, a lot of times we crash and burn because we haven't networked to even build our teams and outsource. We're trying to just do everything on our own. So that's why every week, guys, I'm on this call because I love, even though I may not be able to network, shaking a real hand, we can network virtually. And I'm glad we have technology. And sometimes you just have to work it. So we should take advantage of that every week. And so, how has the emphasis on networking within the village helped the org in terms of capacity building and assessing new resources?
Shekinah, you want me to jump in?
Sure.
So immediately what I think about is that the village only exists because of the individual parts. When we talk about the power of networking, the work of the village is networking. It is us coming to the table collaboratively. It is making sure that our resources actually are cycled through the village. It is why Ashley, as a consultant of the village, is now a member of the village, right? And still providing support in ways that the village can connect even outside of itself. We rely on the wisdom of our members. And so when I think about the power of networking, honestly, it's the power of each individual in the village to recognize that we all need each other, that there is a skill that someone else offers that we don't know. I mean, all the way down to I'm filling out the scope of services contract for Metro government, and another village org who is also a direct contractee sends me their scope of services and says this is what we were able to get approved. See what language you can pull from there so that we can try to circumvent some of the delays with legal, down to quite literally how the money ends up in our bank account. It is networking and collaboration that helps. The other thing that I will name is that if we think about the population that the village serves, it is written into our context of historical understanding, as well as sort of the framing for our value proposition, that there have been legal, person to person, right, cultural, as well as political lines of difference that have served as very real barriers for the leaders that we serve in the village. If you are thinking about how to right size that deficit, the only way you get there is through people. It is not pushing another button. It is not signing up for another email list. It is combining our human capital enough that we can break through the intentional barriers that have kept us behind in so many ways.
You want to add anything, Shekinah?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to emphasize and piggyback off of what Erica just said. Like, the backbone of the village literally is leveraging and identifying the skills people of color that are often overlooked in other communities and in other sectors. And I think that that is one of the things that I appreciate the most as not only the village program manager, but I was even introduced to the village through a workshop that the village was providing that Ashley, you were leading actually. And so I think even now in this moment is a full circle moment of how important not only networking is, but I think the village, like you said, Ashley, is one of the few entities and programs that practices what we preach, not only front facing, but internally. And just leveraging not only in, like I said, just leveraging and really embracing the skills that our individual members and our organizations bring to the table that aren't always embraced, that aren't always appreciated in other sectors. And I think that's literally one of the most important pieces of the village. I mean, we're called the village because the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. Not only does it take a village to raise a child, but it really does take a village for a program to thrive, for an organization to thrive. And so I think that we are really not only helping lead the culture of debunking working in silos, and I think we just really practice what we preach in that aspect.
And I want to ask one more question. Support and partnerships. Can you elaborate what type of partnerships is the village looking for? How can we help?
Erica, do you want to lead in that, or you
Yeah,
want me to?
I'm gonna start with the hard ask, and then I think Shekinah may have some others. The most immediate need from my perspective, because Shekinah and I sort of have different vantage points to this body of work right now, is honestly to diversify our funding. This is, a place where typically we see, even when we think about our village orgs, that there is a significant deficit around sustainable funding. I mean, it is true across most organizations, and we could go through the list of all the reasons why there is a wealth gap, and it is real, and that carries over into the work that we do. The village was birthed, and we try to share our origin story as often as possible because it is part of who we are, right? And it's also a tool that is not amplified often enough in professional spaces to honor the history of the work and what power that has. Our origin story was at the center of community need. There were dollars available that were taxpayer dollars available, and there were organizations that were meeting community needs. And in between, we had to figure out what are the steps, what are the processes that allow these organizations who are doing the work, whether they're in the basement of somebody's church, right, or rotating through a restaurant back room so they can meet. But the work is happening, and it is viable, and it is meaningful community work. And we have dollars, and there's a lot of red tape around these dollars, but the dollars exist. If we're looking at that as an origin story, and then knowing that the first seed dollars came from an allocation from city government, right? Because there was a need that was recognized and people in place to make real decisions to make things change. Then we understand 4 years later, right, how we are here. The piece that did not evolve was an opportunity to look at funding outside of that initial allocation. There were some good faith assumptions made around the commitment of our government and our city council members in alignment with some ideals that, because things happen and transitions occur, that those ideals were not carried forth through this as a strategy. And so very directly, we are at a place where we are needing to secure 3 years of an operating budget for the village, which is about $1.5 million. So not super significant in terms of capability. Like we can get there, but we need help. We need partners to lean in, to invest, to see the value in pouring in and increasing the capacity of our Black leaders. We need folks who see and understand that these organizations don't have the same cards in their hand as some of the other organizations in town. And so how do we help right size? How do we unapologetically commit to the work of Black leaders in our impact sector and the organizations that are primarily supporting Black members of our community. So from my seat, what we need in partnership is to help develop the financial capital of the village to dig in and to do this work over 3 years without the constraints that government provides.
Got it. Did you want to close us out, Shekinah?
Yeah, no, I think Erica said that so eloquently. I think that in terms of partnership, from my perspective, we need to partner with people who are deeply committed to seeing Black-led nonprofits in Nashville thrive, and not from to Erica's point, not from a scarcity mindset, not from a not from a from a genuine place. I think we just need to partner with people who are not threatened, who do not feel like, don't have a crab in the bucket mindset, but really have a community centered, solutions oriented mindset. And I think that's pretty much just it. I mean, we're pretty much open to partnering with Black led businesses, other organizations, people who are just committed to doing the work, committed to the mission of, amplifying Black voices, amplifying Black led nonprofits.
Yeah. So guys, please join us February the 13th at the AC Hotel if you want to learn more about partnership, membership, whatever that looks like. Shekinah and Erica will be there to answer your questions. So again, thank you for your time, ladies, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. We're so excited.
Thank you, Ashley.